majority opinion in the NBA fandom is that the greatest first-round upset in history was the Warriors triumphing over the Dallas Mavericks in 2007. And I agree. They managed to upset the #1 overall seed led by MVP Dirk Nowitzki in 7 games. But the 2007 Warriors were not the first 8th seed in history to do the impossible. The first time an 8th seed beats a first seed in the first round was in 1994, and it was the Denver Nuggets upsetting the Seattle Supersonics. This upset not only changed the fate of the two teams, but also changed the fate of the players on each team. It was probably Seattle's best chance at winning the championship during their 90s run. And in this video, we're going to talk about exactly how the Denver Nuggets pulled it off. Before we get into it though, I'd like to thank Vincero Watches for sponsoring this video. Vincero Watches is a direct-to-consumer watch company, which means they cut off the middleman, which allows them to offer high-end products at a comparatively low price. On Vincero's website, you'll find 6 different types of watches for men in each collection with multiple colorways. So here's a look at a couple of Vincero watches. These two are part of the Chrono S collection. In terms of how they feel, the quality is amazing. Leather strap, crystal glass watch face, and perhaps most importantly, they look amazing, and I hope the camera actually do the watches justice. With the different collections and different colorways and interchangeable straps, anyone can find a watch that fits their overall style. Vincero also offers custom engravings, which make their watches a perfect gift for a friend or family member. Vincero also has watch collections for women, which make them a great gift for your significant other. In fact, I myself have already ordered a watch for my girlfriend, and I had NBA League Pass engraved on it, just so she knows what's really important to me. But anyways, if you want to get a watch, make sure to click the link down below. Check out their website. They have so many cool options available. And make sure to use my promo code MDJ for 15% off your entire order. Alright, let's set the scene for 1993. In 1993, Michael Jordan had led the Chicago Bulls to their 3rd NBA title in a row. But on October 6th, Jordan shocks the NBA world by announcing his retirement from basketball. To NBA fans, this is sad news, but to other NBA teams, this was perhaps good news. It meant that the NBA title was ripe for the taking. One team that had their eyes dead set on the trophy were the Seattle Supersonics. The year prior, they made it all the way to the Western Conference Finals, pushing the Phoenix Suns to 7 games. They were led by their young duo, Gary Payton and Shawn Kemp, as well as veteran scorer Ricky Pierce. In the offseason, they added sharpshooter Detlef Schrempf to the team, and when the 1993-94 season began, they were off and rolling. They cruised to a 63-19 record. They were top 5 in both offensive and defensive efficiency, and many considered them to be the favorites for the championship. Meanwhile, in Denver, the Nuggets were far less remarkable. In the late 80s and early 90s, Denver was an up-tempo run-and-gun team that was a very bad defensive team. In fact, many sports writers that time nicknamed the team the Enver Nuggets, referring to the fact that they play no D. That all changed when they drafted Dikembe Mutombo in 1991, who changed the team immediately. In the 93-94 season, Mutombo, now in his 3rd year in the league, continued to blossom into an all-time defensive player. He led the league with 4.1 blocks per game and anchored a top 5 Denver defense. Offensively, however, Denver struggled mightily. They didn't move the ball much, they had a high turnover rate, and most importantly, they just didn't have that much offensive talent on this roster. Their best offensive player was Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, who averaged 18 points per game. Denver ended up 20th in the league in offensive rating with a 42-40 record, just barely above 500 and just enough to squeeze into the playoffs. Needless to say, when the Nuggets match up with the Sonics in the first round, nobody gave Denver any chance. Gary Payton, the man we now know as the Glove, had blossomed into an all-time great defender, being selected first-team All-Defense in the 93-94 season. With him locking down Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, who else on this Denver team was going to score? When the series opened in Seattle for Game 1, Seattle jumped out to a 30-19 lead in the first quarter. By halftime, they had stretched that lead to 25 points, holding the Nuggets to 37 during the first half. They ended up cruising through the game and winning 106-82. As predicted, Abdul-Rauf, being guarded by Gary Payton, shot only 3 of 12 from the field. One might be tempted to say that the series was over by Game 1, but in most people's eyes, the series was over before Game 1 even happened. Game 2 was more of the same. Seattle again jumped out to an early lead and took control of the game. The Nuggets weren't quite as embarrassing and put up a good fight. At points it was quite close, but Seattle still won comfortably, 97-87. Abdul Rauf again shot poorly, only 5 of 15 from the field, but LaFonso Ellis had a great game despite being matched up against all-star Shawn Kemp. Ellis had 18 points and 10 rebounds while holding Kemp to 4 of 14 shooting from the field. Now back in 1994, the playoff format for the first round was best of 5, which meant that the Nuggets, being down 0-2, was in a win-or-die situation for Game 3 back in Denver. The Denver Nuggets head coach, in an interview years later, admitted that after Game 2, even he thought it was over. His goal at the time, to quote his own words, were to just win one game and perhaps gain some experience. Despite the likelihood of their team getting swept, Nuggets fans crowded the arena for Game 3. The atmosphere was amazing. Denver Broncos quarterback John Elway even came out to support the team. On the first possession of the game, the Nuggets moved the ball around and Abdul Rauf sinked a three-pointer. Then, moments later, Reggie Williams stuffs deadlift shrimp in the post, which leads to a fast break layup for Abdul Rauf. This Denver team that had struggled to score all season long managed to put up 41 points in the first quarter of Game 3. That's right, 41 points, more than they had the entire first half of Game 1. The offense was clicking on all cylinders. LaFonso Ellis continued to play great defense on Shawn Kemp, and Gary Payton, perhaps inexplicably, only took 6 field goal attempts in 30 minutes. The MVP of the game for Denver was 30-year-old Reggie Williams, who scored 31 points on 11 of 16 shooting from the field. The Nuggets end up blowing out the Seattle Supersonics 110-93. In Game 4, Denver did not run out to a crazy first quarter lead like they did in Game 3. But in Game 4, Denver rolls out a very interesting zone defense, which confuses Seattle. Their aggressive double teaming all game long end up forcing 19 turnovers from Seattle. For comparison, Seattle committed only 10 turnovers in Game 2 and Game 3. Mutombo was an absolute monster on both ends of the court, grabbing 16 rebounds and blocking 8 shots. While Seattle's star players played well, they were let down by their bench. Sam Perkins shot 0 of 7 from the field, Nate McMillan shot 1 of 7. The game was very close throughout and went into overtime. However, during the overtime period, it was all Denver, and they end up winning 94-85. For Game 5, the two teams headed back to Seattle, and with home court advantage, most were still picking Seattle to close out this series. The game was again very close all throughout. Consistent with what had happened the previous 2 games, Mutombo and his front court mate LaFonso Ellis proved to be superior to Seattle's front court, and Kemp was again noticeably less aggressive than usual. Rauf continued to struggle with his shot, and Reggie Williams, the hero of Game 3, was missing a lot of his shots as well. However, Denver found an unlikely hero to carry their offense in Game 5, and that man was Robert Pack. Pack was a 24-year-old hyper-athletic point guard who had served as backup to Abdul Rauf for most of the season. Pack ends up scoring 25 points, with 21 of those points coming in the second half and overtime. In fact, during the overtime period, Pack played instead of Abdul Rauf. The big man Bison Deal also came off the bench and had a huge game, putting up 17 points and 19 rebounds. The game again went into overtime, and while Seattle did much better this time around in overtime than they did in Game 4, it wasn't enough. Down 2 points with about 30 seconds left, Seattle goes to their all-star power forward Shawn Kemp, but Kemp gets swatted by Mutombo. Seattle was forced to foul, and Robert Pack sinks both free throws, putting Denver up 4. With 10 seconds left, Sam Perkins misses a running hook. Nate McMillan misses a pull-up 3. Mutombo comes down with the rebound, and the game is over. This is the iconic moment of Mutombo clutching the ball on the floor crying. The Nuggets have done what no other team in history at that point had ever accomplished. Now, with all 5 games in hindsight, it's easy to see where Seattle went wrong and where Denver went right. Shawn Kemp was completely overmatched by LaFonso Ellis and Dikembe Mutombo. Seattle's top 5 defense was quite weak around the rim as a result. Not only did Ellis have a great series scoring inside, but Denver's wing players were able to penetrate and score around the basket or draw fouls. Like many predicted, Gary Payton indeed shut down Rauf in the playoffs. Rauf averaged only 9 points per game on terrible shooting efficiency, but Denver's offense still outperformed itself because they had some crazy outlier games. It is ridiculous and completely unpredictable for a backup point guard like Robert Pack, who averaged 9 points per game in the regular season, to score 25 in Game 5. Most notably, Denver, who during the regular season shot 28.5% from 3. That's right, this team shot 28.5% from 3 in the regular season. Even during the 90s, that is an embarrassingly low mark. That placed them amongst the 5 worst shooting teams in the league. So this team, which again shot 28.5% from 3, shot 39.4% from 3 this series, making 28 out of 71 three-pointers. So if you do the math, 71 three-pointers, 5 games, 14 three-point attempts per game this series. In the regular season, they attempted only 7 per game. This outlier alone would have been enough to swing the series. So even in an era where nobody really shot that well, shooting well from 3 still made a huge difference in this series. The Denver Nuggets would then go on to lose to the Utah Jazz in the second round. In the big picture, while this was an all-time great moment, Denver would have a very unsuccessful decade in the 90s. The following season in 1995, they again ended up as the 8th seed, but this time they were swept by the Spurs in the first round. And after that, they wouldn't make the playoffs until the Carmelo Anthony era in the 2000s. For the Sonics, however, this represented their best chance at winning a championship during the 90s. Gary Payton and Sean Kemp would stick together and lead the Sonics to 5 more playoff appearances after their loss in 1994, including an appearance in the 1996 NBA Finals where they lost to the Jordan Bulls. But in 1994, Jordan wasn't in the league. In fact, the 1994 NBA champions ended up being the Houston Rockets, who the Supersonics had defeated in the playoffs the year prior. So if the Sonics had managed to make it past the first round, being the first seed in the West with home court advantage, they had a really good shot at winning the championship. Unfortunately, they squandered their best opportunity, this 2-year window when Jordan was not in the league. That is the story of how in 1994 the Denver Nuggets beat the Supersonics in the first round as the 8th seed. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Make sure to check out Vincero Watches by clicking the link down in the description below. And I will see you guys next video.